company I work for. Now, I admit when I first started working there in the 70s, there
Bottles
was
or containers, right? Mm-hmm.
yeah, there
Mm-hmm.
was some women were put in a lesser place, but as they got on board pretty quick as far as equality goes between men and women. I mean, they now it was a union shop, so that probably made a difference, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they were not allowed to discriminate against women in any way, shape, or form. Now, I've always supported this. I mean, I have a granddaughter, and
Mm-hmm.
I do not want her to live in a world where women are treated as have any less equality than any man does.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm a feminist myself in my own way.
Like that book, we all should be feminists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Yeah. Thanks.
I,
Okay.
I
Go ahead. You still have the microphone. You can continue.
Yeah, you still
oh
have. Go
well, I
ahead.
was just going to say, it seems to me that a lot of, I think you were saying earlier that in places where women are considered to be second class citizens are the more third world countries where, and I'm not trying to blast religion here, but I think religion plays a big part in this.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, women are not considered equal to men in a lot of religions. Now, I think hopefully it'll move away from that.
Yeah, or at least transform that in some way that it fits more into universal agenda or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of women.
I mean, hopefully things. Yeah. So hopefully things will start getting better in these places where women are second class citizens. But that's just that's a cultural thing, and they'll have to change that themselves, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's
yeah. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, that's the point of this event. Sharing your personal opinion and experiences. Okay, Myelin, you do have the megaphone, right?
Oh, hey. Yep. Hello, guys.
Hey.
Although this could be sure on the gender equality,
а вы можете в сообщениях мне написать.
Different stuff can use like human rights rather than only gender, woman and man, but specifically about the woman and man, I would say about the education. That's what I see in my life path. I live in Uzbekistan, and in the
просто написать сообщение, но, к сожалению, здесь только по-английски, а я бы хотел просто узнать тему нашего разговора, если я могу бы присутствовать у вас, то просто хотелось бы знать тему.
Да, конечно, равенство между полами.
Равенство между полами.
Да, вообще гендерные. Он парень тоже из Узбекистана, интересно.
Картинки космоса это как бы просто в общем, да?
We think about all the world is about just respect the girls.
Спасибо большое.
When we are just live in our life. For instance, when I were in my science class, which is physics course, we were about 20 people who studied the physics, but there were only 3 women in the class, which is just annoying for me because seeing men all the time in my life, I hate it. I love chemistry.
We used to make jokes that some faculties are like just monasteries. Only men, like engineering stuff, like in my university, they used to call it a monastery for men.
But it's not just it's okay. For instance, if you are army, you only be a man and everybody just switches off between each other. But a lot more just respect girls, like not, and then not feel them as a man. I would say just I would be proud of when any woman just try to get into science and then do stuff like we do, men, I would say. And as another perspective, when I see the women as in competitions like soccer, I was just excited how they brave, like even a lot more braver than us when they compete each other in athletic manner. And I think these kind of a lot more communications would improve the man and woman life path, I would say, because currently we live in a world like, as an, how could I say,
yeah,
as
thanks
a
for
human or or something like that. As a man, or another person, there is no such a hard job that we do in every job. There's a lot more mental stuff. So I would say these communications would be great to fix gender in every field.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a big shift. I think it's a really huge cultural shift, because I understand the situation where these are just manifestations that we see. Not many women want to study maths. They don't want to study physics, for example. Not the majority. On one hand, you can complain that actually they don't get equal positions, I guess, because like if you want to apply for some job, many employers, they just like sometimes they just say it out, straight ahead that we would prefer men, because like you don't have to pay for maternity leave, and you don't have to be worried that a woman is going to be distracted by family or some issues. But I think in general, like job is not a first priority for women culturally, in many cultures, I guess. And that's why like they tend to skip more work days. So for employer, it's not very, it's not the best choice. But on the other hand, I think there's another thing that is like underlying all those things, that for many women, it's a choice, because like naturally women, they take this passive role where they have different functions. For example, you wouldn't go hunting if you can go and gather things like, berries and mushrooms and I don't know, like do something that requires different set of skills. And for some, I think for many women, it's difficult to switch to something different. And I know a lot of women who dream to get married, and they attribute all the, responsibility to their husband, that is a real person or just like an imaginary future would-be person. So I think that's another topic where people just attribute the responsibility. They give the responsibility to somebody else. So it's like a child position. If you know the Karpman triangle, it's like a framework in psychology where they state that the drama triangle, when the interaction between people is not very healthy, they tend to have three positions, and sometimes people switch from one position to another. So it's like a victim position, the persecutor position, and the rescuer position. So a lot of people, subconsciously they choose the role where they're victimized, where they take this role of a child who doesn't take responsibility. That's a whole different mindset. That person could seemingly be an independent, working, functioning, like human being. But in reality, the methods some people choose to solve the problems, they're just different. For example, exactly. if you have a choice that there's like some device that is broken and it's not working, there two people are going to solve the problem differently. Some person would choose to, okay, let's Google how to fix that, and maybe we can do it ourselves. If we can't, we can go and find somebody who does it better. But another mindset is like, oh, I'm going to go and find somebody who's going to do that for me for free. I'm just going to go and smile there. So it's a different, solution for the problem. And it works. It really works. In many situations, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where it gets like the competition, the situation is such that you choose the easier way, where you take the passive position. As you mentioned, like many religions, I know a lot of women who are happy with the religious, system where they're from, like where they are, because they don't have to take responsibility in a lot of situations. They can just like find their partner, and it's like a deal that they take. He's going to provide for the family, and I'm just gonna stay silent and like adapt to this person. That's going to be just my one single function, and I think I can deal with that. So it's a choice. It's like a golden cage. I always call it a golden cage. There's some certain degree of comfort in exchange for like relationship equality, status that actually requires more effort from a woman than from men. But a lot of women, they're happy to do so. They don't want, if they have a choice to go and make money and like work and have a career, or to stay at home and just solve that single function of being like a good wife, a lot of women, they prefer the second choice just because it's easier and it suits their personality type more. The thing is, like, I think the question is the switch in the society, that like, optimal number that is going to be rising and provoking people to be more responsible. I think that in many countries where there are dictatorships, people in general are more passive. So they tend to make choices that are easier. They're more victimized and more they don't require action as much as tolerance towards some things. So I think it's a general it's like a change of paradigm, where we move from that system where people bond into couples and families, and the main, like, the hardest job for a man is, like, for one person is to provide for a family, and the hardest job for, like, in exchange for a second person to tolerate that person and support it, like the husband, or mostly husband.
Yeah, that whole dynamic. I understand.
Yeah. It is. But like over time, I think the societies change, the jobs change, the opportunities change. Like, so women, they can provide for the family equally. So a lot of couples, they unite as partners now, and not like the first couple is also partners, but a little of a different kind. I always remember these interesting research papers that Sapolsky, actually, primatologist, he mentioned that in a lot of different species of apes, they have like two types of relationships, because if you want to understand what is natural to a person, ape studies are rather interesting and relevant to look into. So there are always two types, like not always, but like among apes, different species of apes, there are different systems. Some creatures, they have like very different size and weight, so that way a male is like much larger than a female. So it's like I think these types of species, they're called tournament species, where the larger muscular male is not like staying with the female, other than just like providing good genes. So the bet for a woman, it's like for a female, is that I'm going to spend a lot of calories, raising a child on my own. So I'd better choose some like good genes, so that way my child has these good genes, and that way they can, they can mature faster, they can be better, like, so I can spend like some amount of time and then get a good, son or daughter that is going to provide and spend, help me later. And other types of apes, they have like this different time where they different type of relationships. It's pair bonding species. So the male and female, they're pretty much of the same size, and they always bond couples, and they spend more time. So in such system, a female is choosing somebody who is gonna be a better father. So in this, some of the species of these apes are interesting, that to have like always to have twins. So it's easier to raise children when there are two parents. So these are two different systems, and I think people also have this, the different cultures and different situations. I think inside the same culture you can find different couples that fall into different, different grade in that spectrum.
Yeah.
And choose somebody who's like them. Have you noticed many couples who look alike, like husband and wife? They're pretty much alike, and some couples are like so different. He's really tall and she's very short, and like, or some of the partners is like really large, and another one is like miniature and petite. I think we can still see that same pattern, but in a different variations, in many different variations.
So do you think so which way do you think is the better way? Do you think that dynamic of staying home, or the dynamic of you think
Family Guy?
Or do you think the dynamic of a partnership is better?
You know what? I think there's no. Oh, Mulder as well. Or maybe we can give you the word before I say my experience.
Well, I've been in both kinds of partner relationship marriages. That. My first wife, I worked. She stayed home. Took care of the house. I brought the money in and all this, and I found myself resenting that too. For me, I mean, this is all my own. This is my personal
preference
choice here. This is how I felt. Yeah, I resent the fact that she wasn't. I mean, I know I shouldn't say it like this, but I felt like I was contributing more than she was. And that's not a fair statement. I know that. So at the other times that I got married, they worked. I mean, they had, I was not going to be the sole provider. As a matter of fact, my third wife, she actually lost her job. She almost lost her job, I should say. And I told her that I don't think we're going to make it if you can't help, if you can't help out. And, I know that sounds cold-hearted. I know that. But
it's life.
But that was kind of how I felt. Because I'm at the point now where I'm basically done with as far as marriage and that sort of thing goes. I mean, at my age, that's I'm not going to worry about it.
I don't want no more.
Yeah, well, 5 is a beautiful number. You never know.
No, not for me. I'm done. 4's plenty.
Got it.
Goodness.
So, you would prefer the partnership, right? From what I
yes, I always did. I didn't want to feel that that I was carrying the weight of making sure we had a home and food and all that. It was a two-way street as far as I was concerned. Even when I had kids, I expected her to work. And she did.
I think that's the switch. Not in family systems only. Like, families are like indicators, but I think the world is changing. So back to your question, I think this is going to be the most common opinion here, probably because we are like from developed countries, or at least developed types of people in general. So I think we would choose something closer to partnership. I guess I wouldn't say for anybody else, but I would say for myself, I would prefer the partnership side, because from my point of view, I've seen both sides of this, family system where a husband is like a provider and a wife is like a support. There's a good proverb in Russian and whatever, many languages, that husband is a head and wife is a neck. So that way a head does the main thing, but the neck actually controls where it looks. So it's a good proverb, but I think at the same time, I see some flaw in the system like that may occur, because when you have very different, when you are in a partnership, but you have very different responsibilities, and like long-term partnerships where you have some moments of some conflicts or something, one day or another, you always have that. So I think in that situation you start devaluing your partner, because you don't quite understand what they're doing, and that way you think that they're not doing enough. I've heard that so many times from women. They say, oh, he just goes to his job and he enjoys being there. He's just like has fun going to work and, doesn't come home. He doesn't help me. And he's like this and that. And men, I can understand both sides, because men, they feel like they do it's like a partnership where each person thinks that they do more because of the nature of that relationship, I think. Only if you have a lot of money.
Because of the whole dynamic. Someone's not there, you don't see what the other person is doing all the time. So you don't know that.
Exactly.
This and this and this, and they don't know that this and this and this. So
true.
That's a good way of looking. I never thought of that.
Yeah. In job, I was trying to think about the professional relationships. In profession, that's sometimes it's useful because you don't know the field of responsibility of another person, and that way you rely on them, but you don't depend on them that much sometimes. You just come to work, you do something together, you have a very clear goal of what you're doing, and it's always like it pays very quickly. You have the money every month or like every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And for the family, you do have the common goal, but I think because the result is a little bit blurred, like, yeah, we both want to make family and we want to raise our kids and like do things where we depend on each other, but at the same time it's like such a long-term goal, and it doesn't have like at least that dopamine rush where you can really enjoy what you do and see the results immediately. And that's why it gets hard, and you get a little bit tired, and when you're tired you lose your resources, and once you lose your resources, psychological, mental resources, and once you go down from the minimum level, like the waterline, you start looking for somebody whose fault that is, and that's where these things happen, when people think, oh, she's not doing enough, oh, he's not, he's never at home, he doesn't do this and that. And I've heard those phrases many times. I've heard those phrases where after 30 years of being together, a husband would say, why would you even complain? You've been sitting at home all the time doing nothing. Like, that is so not true. If you spend like at least a week at home looking at how the women is, doing a lot of stuff and getting tired because they're always at home. Your responsibility, like, is so diverse. Like, you have so many things that are, and you rarely have some space where you can be on your own. It's like, I would say it's like having a job without days off. Even if it's just like part-time job, you need a day to switch off your brain and just like not to think about your job, just like for staying functional, at least one day. And it's not a coincidence that there are like 5 working days and 2 days off. You have to switch off and like really get some rest. But if you're a mother or a housewife, you don't get that chance. Like, you don't have a day off. You're always, responsible for many things, and that's why not like every family can afford to have a day off. So that's another point, I think, if you're a housewife. Well, from what I've seen, at least, because, for example, I think being a housewife in America and being a housewife in Russia, it's a different workload.
Somewhere else is different.
Yeah.
Well, then you introduce, like, say, if you have a gender role relationship, like that, and then you have kids too, have a family dynamic, and I could be gone at work all day, but she managing the kids, so it's like a whole job itself. I don't know if anyone's parents have been, but that's a lot of stuff to deal with.
Responsibility as well, like moral responsibility. If you have a job, you can sometimes turn off your brain, and when you're a parent, I think it's so hard. That's why I don't have kids so far.
Well, it's your actual life, your work is your life at that point, I think. So I've always respected my lady because I know she does that for. It's a great service because I have so many children of my own. So I love that about my dynamic that I have at home.
You're very, I think, aware, highly aware person. That's why I think it's not everybody has that, and I think it also depends on the community, on the country, on the society, on different points. For example, I watched a video yesterday, or today, I don't remember, a film about it's scenes from family life or something like that from Denmark. Oh no, Sweden. So it was like a Swedish family in the 80s or 70s, something like that. And the relationships picture is so different. Like women smoke and they like, they behave in a different way than I'm used to see. And this is really different. Like when you have a culture where there's more equality, I think Scandinavian cultures are the best in sense of equality, happiness, like quality of life. Yes. Denmark has been like the world, top for many years because they really know how to live life to be happy and that's why you never hear any news from Denmark. They have just like boring, happy life, I guess. Yeah. Other than those dolphins. Anyway, so
there's not a lot of
yeah. Okay.
And when people can get along, it's great.
Yeah. Okay, I have some hand raises. Before I go to Mar de la Soir, Сергей, будете что-нибудь говорить? Давайте переведу.
Да, мне бы очень хотелось сказать то, что сейчас в России, в том месте, где я сейчас живу.
А где вы живете?
Немного поменялось отношение к женщинам.
Yeah, in Russia, in that
как
region.
Я это вижу.
Yeah, the situation with equality has changed towards women, especially. А в какую сторону?
В некоторых населенных пунктах, наоборот, стараются стать, наоборот, пытаются сделать главами населенных пунктов женщин.
Oh, that's nice. Like in many cities, they promote for women to become like the politicians, the mayors of cities, like to get more into politics, take more positions in power. Да, это хорошая динамика. That's a very positive dynamics.
Да, как бы если говорить в общем, то все равно во главе остается как бы мужчина и как бы вот конкретно моего случая, то, что глава района это всегда будет мужчина.
Yeah, but in general,
но населенные пункты там могут быть женщины.
Okay. So the general situation is still like more patriarchal. Like if you take main positions in politics and like business and more things, they're still taken by men mostly. But he says, like for example, if you take the regions and different cities, women may get some positions in the cities or smaller regions, but the larger region or area is going to be taken like almost 100% by men. Not 100, but the majority. Да, согласна.
Да, и по моему мнению, почему больше доверяют женщинам, потому что они более гибкие в некоторых вопросах, которые могут касаться благоустройства населенных пунктов.
Oh, nice. Yeah, good point. Like, why people start trusting women more? Because they have more sense of what to do, what's the best way to restructure the city and make it more beautiful and for the everyday life, inside the city. They're more aware and they're more flexible on how to do that. I totally agree. Yeah. Это прям так и есть, согласна. Because housewives, I think housewives have a much better idea on how to make things, effectively, sustainably. Yep. Maybe not that radically, but that resourcefulness.
Well, I mean, so men have a natural competitive drive that's different than
it is true.
So
Есть еще идеи?
A woman can come in from a place that men can't, So
yeah, true.
I respect that idea a lot.
Yeah.
Да, и еще о том, что как бы когда в России, так вот сложно, когда ты обращаешься к женщине, все равно ты не можешь к ней как бы обратиться с какой-то там, обратиться с ней какой-то агрессией. Когда это по сравнению с мужчиной. И когда ты обращаешься к женщине, это все равно как бы идет с пониманием о том, что у тебя если приходит к ней обыкновенный какой-нибудь житель и говорит о том, что у него какие-то там проблемы бытовые, это идет в населенных пунктах к женщине, это как-то более такое идет обращение, более такое более как бы в легкой форме, и она все-таки более пытается как-то такой вопрос решить, чем к мужчине.
So it's another good point. Like whenever you talk to a woman who's you come to complain to a mayor, let's say, or a politician that is a woman, it's in the first place, it's harder to come with aggression there because like when you come to complain or like inform of some problem, it's kind of like when you talk to a woman, it naturally like encourages for a more civilized way of communicating and solving
Простите,
problems.
извините, от мужчин ждут больше какой-то больше реальной структуры, чтобы он что-то там сделал, а от женщины больше как бы вот у него перед глазами женщина-руководитель, он ей говорит, и как бы такое ощущение, как будто ему просто хочется выговориться на эту тему. То есть от нее особо как бы и не ждут каких-то решений. Это как по моему мнению. Вот. Но от мужчины как бы там может быть немножко по-другому.
That's another interesting point. He says, like, when you come to a politician and you, like, not a politician, but like complain for some problems in the city or something, like, if there's a man, you naturally expect them to do something about it. But when you talk to a woman, you like just the conversation itself sometimes is enough, like because you just come to complain, and to sometimes like women, they're not expected to act as radically as from men. Okay, interesting. Спасибо. Спасибушки. Okay, I have some hand raises as well. Mardella Swar, would you like to add something? Let me give you a megaphone. Really
I've had women supervisors before many times, and I found they could be just as aggressive as any man.
They can.
I mean, maybe it's
because they are allowed to.
Carpet more than once.
Because they're allowed to.
I've been called to exactly, and they've called me to the carpet, and I've had to explain so many times. There was no difference, as far as male or female, it didn't matter. My job was, I had a job to do, and I'm expected to do it. So, I think women are perfectly capable of taking on a position of, a managerial position where they can dictate what's going to happen.
It is
true.
That's
fine. I mean, so.
I agree with you, but as I mentioned, like for me, for example, it's still strange when I see a woman smoking in reality, because they are not allowed to.
Oh, yeah.
In the city where I'm from, it's considered to be very, almost unacceptable, and they're being shamed by people, not as harshly as in previous times, but you would certainly feel some, looks if you smoke outside, and that was like really strange for me to see. And same with aggression. I think I read the book now about the mind read, I think, about the Atlant something, about the railroad business, whatever. And there was a lady, and a lot of American women, they have more freedom to express themselves, because America hasn't faced the I guess maybe the acute violence between genders for a long time. That's why they can express themselves and like say what they think, because if you are daring in some areas like my country or some other countries, you are going to feel that pressure very early on in life. Like, even if you stand by men who do something and you're like a girl, like young girl, and you say something, like comment something like, oh, you should do this and that, like suggest some constructive idea or something, you are, I think just the fact itself is not very positively seen, as you are much younger. You should keep your mouth shut, and especially you're a girl. What can you know about these things? Go ahead, go help your mother or something. And women are not encouraged to study. They're not encouraged to go into science, because this is generally seen as some, decorative stuff, because the main goal in life is to have a family. And that creates a lot of tension for this generation, because a lot of things has changed, and people change, and like the reality changes, the economy changes, and a lot of old systems, they are not as effective now. And there's like a lot of the clash between those two different systems, where you are being raised with one set of values, but the reality actually is different, and that's why it creates some frustration for many people. I think whatever. So, okay, so
Mylan had her stand up.
Yeah, Mylan, you have your Cornelius. Yes, finally you're ready to speak. I see your smileys a lot, but. Yeah, share your opinion.
And I just remembered a talk.
Hi. Okay.
Oh, hell.
Do you have a quick?
I just remember the talk in 90s, and specifically a little bit of Constitution of the America, and at the time where women tried to be an equal in their community, and there was a talk of women that specifically mentions about the women's when the moment, like, if all community wants their kids to be as an patriotic for their country, and then be quite wise in any manner, in that case, as usual, all women have to raise their kids by themselves, but how they could make their kids as such a wise and patriotic or any kind of high expected kid when their mother is not, when the women are not just wise enough and they are not equal in their community. So in that case, those chain rule cannot work, and that should, therefore all the gender should be equal in order to just keep all the not just woman and man, but beyond these areas, like raising the kids, as well as I would have said that regardless of these stuffs like gender equality, I would say the human rights rather than like kids and parents. There are lots of stuff, but it's another topic. But it exists everywhere. Yeah. You could not just create a name on it, but there are some.
Yep.
And I would say just it should be just as a little consideration for all mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
That was what I want.
Yeah. Cornelius, I think you still have the megaphone. Yeah, thanks. I like the way your hairstyles match Mylin and Cornelius. Yeah.
Yeah, too much to say about this topic.
Oh yeah, I know.
It's incredible.
Yeah, keep talking. Not too many people tonight. You have more space to speak.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you were saying about the culture. I perhaps I should talk about my
that would be really
history.
Cool.
My parents divorced when I was 3 years old. My mother was an incredible woman, a feminist, and she worked really hard. And at some point, there was this sense that women raise the children, right? And raise the children as sexist if they are men, right? And then I heard from some feminists this concept that I really like, that when the father goes and forget about the kids, it's a way to teach them to be sexist. So it's not just a problem of the mother. Of course, it's a problem of both parents, right?
Sure.
So I was really lucky that I was raised by this incredible woman. And I get to meet another women that were feminists, that were in the friends group, and I grow with this sense of equality, right? The one thing that is different in Mexico is we don't say gender equality. I know the term equity in English is used for more or something more related to economics, but in the feminists in Mexico say gender equity, because that means that we acknowledge the difference that we have, but we need to have the same opportunities, right?
Yeah.
The same.
Right. I like that.
So I don't know if equity is the proper word here in English. But
I think in English there was something. Help me if I'm not.
Perfect.
Yeah, great. Yeah, there was something like equality of responsibilities,
equity,
equality of opportunities. That's
Also,
the opportunities
equity
thing.
is a better accurate thing, I think. For
equity. Very good.
Yeah, equity.
Equity. Because that way you acknowledge all the spectrum of genders, right? It's not just the one that are in the extremes, right? So yeah, I think it's an incredible topic, and
And
thanks for
you know
doing
what?
this talk.
Always my pleasure, and I think Mendes agrees with me. Okay, so I have news for you. We have the first lady. Hold on. Yeah, sure. You have the megaphone. I'll give the megaphone to Renee.
We used to live in Mexico, and 9 years ago we immigrated to Canada, right, to Vancouver, and it was really, really for my wife was really, really different to go to walk alone, right? Here, nobody harassed her, and in Mexico, it's really difficult for women to walk.
Yeah.
By themselves. It's crazy the difference. Like, it's really, really sad. And I think what you were saying about cultures, of course, the difference in cultures is incredible.
Yeah, really quick comment on that. Like, did you notice that in Mexico it's really hard to be like a housewife or a woman, but at the same time, like the family bonds are much stronger. It's different systems.
Yeah.
Like
In
individual.
the small town where
equity.
Where
equity. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, in the small town where I was living just after I came to Canada, the level of alcoholism in males were incredibly huge, but women rule everything, right? But at the same time, they were oppressed. It's a really weird combination.
Yeah. As I said, in Russia, it's pretty much the same. Some women, they carry on the responsibility for the whole family, but at the same time, they're being, taking the jobs, they're underpaid and stuff like that. So, Renee, you are the first lady to speak. Come on. You do have a megaphone, right? Express your opinion.
Yeah. I can only speak on my experience. I was married for 14 years, and I ended up marrying a guy that was raised very basically women are not seen as equal. I understand about women being homemakers, but it's a mutual decision, we're equal. My experience was I was expected to work, be a homemaker, do all the things that were seen as a man should do, but I was not given the respect for doing all of that. I find that these days, and I'm not saying every guy, just from what I've experienced, is these days I find that men expect women to do their womanly tasks, but then still expect them to do 1,000,000 times more on top of it.
Yes.
While still being oppressed. That's just from my personal experience. Men don't want women to be so independent. They still want from us. They want more from us than we want from them. And I would just don't see that as
I agree with you, but I would say that maybe it's just like a specter between the stages. I see that. I remember thinking about exactly that thing when I was like much younger, maybe 15, 16. I thought, what's the point to be like equal if you take more responsibilities over the things that you have? That's crap. I'm not buying it. So I better stay a good wife and get rid of the rest of the stuff. But I think that's just like the situation. Yeah, I think the situation where we go from one system to another. So on the way, some people become victims of this, switch, because men, they take, when any switch between systems and paradigms happen, I think people in power, they tend to take the things that they see as acceptable and easy to take, but like reject some pieces until they can keep the power and like control the situation. So I think that's what happened. So like in many places that happens.
It's basically losing your voice. You're losing your voice. The downside is my ex-husband worked one job, less hours than I did. I worked 3 jobs. I was the homemaker. I did the appointments. I did everything like that. I mowed the lawn. I did the DIY. But then, of course, I'm not entitled to my voice because I'm a woman and my opinion doesn't matter. And it was seen by his parents too. That's how he was raised. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah. Do you have a question, Mendes?
Do you?
Cornelius. Let me give you on this one.
Just wanted to know which country, because we were talking about
country?
Cultures.
Cultural things, right? That are.
I'm in the UK.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting, very interesting. Mendes, did you have any question?
Were more evolved than other parts.
True.
No, not like I said. Don't get me wrong. Not every man is the same. But I can only speak of my personal experience. It's not fun. You can't expect so much from us. Not give us the same respect in return.
Yeah, totally.
Again, equality.
I think that specter happens in any country. It's just like the system inside each family, and that's why like the numbers they come from like a collection of little pieces. So, Mendes, we don't allow you to. So you were asking some questions.
My question was, do you experience that type of stuff in other places too? Like, are men trying to speak over you, like in the place or, you know, at the grocery store or wherever you may be?
Who, me?
Or you or Ozzy.
No, but believe it or not, I work security. For you know, like kickboxing events and things like that. I'm also an ambulance driver. I'm highly respected in every other aspect of work. You know, I'm respected by the men in work. Funnily enough, you know, but you know, home life, being married and caring for the children. I just don't see it as. It's fair. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's really valuable that you're sharing. Yeah, because these situations happen a lot, like in many cases, and that's what I thought at that moment as well. Because it's like it's very possible that men are going to take the. It's like when you carry 2 different bags, like, and you have 100 red points and another person has 100 blue points, like a husband provider and a wife, like a housewife, how would you say that? Like home what was that, like Heath?
Homemaker.
Yeah, homemaker. That's a
homemaker. I like that.
Yeah. I was trying to remember. But and then you say, okay, so we have to switch because there's a new rule that you have to have like 50 and 50 of each, and you try to offload 50% of your load, and that way your partner has to take the half. But the situation is that one person takes the load, mostly because women, they're like more obedient and they follow the rules more. And then men, they're just like, okay, we were ready to walk. I have my 50% of stuff, and like I'm not going to take extra. We're just gonna leave it here. So it creates this hidden pressure.
No, you are right.
But I think it happens also because we still have, to some point, I think it's like we are walking into a weird area here. But I think in a lot of cases it also has to deal with our physiology as well. As I said, like in primates, they have different body sizes, and that's why it kind of determines your psychology in some sense, right? I always catch myself like thinking about other people. You're highly intelligent like personalities, but at the same time you're animals, and that's why that animal part of you always monitors the situation. Is there any danger around me? How many people around me are stronger than me? How many people around me are weaker than me? And like not only physically but psychologically. And I think that changes. It's almost like it's such a subtle thing that happens that you don't always even notice that. And I think sometimes we even make choices based on that, because we have some combinations of those two, and like we have our own like vision of what we need as a partner. And of course we always try to find that the puzzle that just fits right in. But the puzzles, they are sometimes, you know, they have pluses and minuses, and unfortunately sometimes the puzzles, they don't play in a long-term relationships, because the system, you know, sometimes you choose the partner, you think that you need a partner that is this way, but in reality you need like you're more compatible with a different type of personality. So there are so many levels of our psyche and body and everything that it's sometimes hard to understand yourself. I think that's the most important part, to understand yourself, so that way you can choose a partner. Because I think I get into that trap myself a lot. I think that I need one partner, and I have consequently I have some requirements for the type of person. But in reality, I'm more compatible with a different type of people. And when I come together and that something starts happening over time, those, you know, internal conflicts, they cause some difficulties, you know. Okay, so Sergey,
difficult thing.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. That's a long way to go. Okay, Сергей, давайте вам сначала микрофон дам. Чуть-чуть покороче говорите, чтобы я кусочками успевала переводить тоже.
She's gonna translate for us.
У меня руководитель женщина.
Okay, my boss is a woman at the museum, right? As far as I understand.
Да. Я работаю в музее.
Это я уже сказала, да.
Вот. Смысл в чем? О том, что женщина не может понимать некоторые технические вопросы, которые могут касаться в будущем и его учреждения.
Okay, that's an interesting point. He says that the point is that sometimes women are not always able to understand technical details about some job, for example, that may be important in some points. Окей, продолжайте.
Когда я первый раз пришел, когда я устроился на работу, скорость интернета была около 1 мегабита в секунду. Спустя какое-то время меня чуть бы не уволили. Я еле как уговорил руководителя, чтобы скорость интернета увеличили до 10 мегабит в секунду. Это было до пандемии.
Okay, so the internet speed was like very low, like one megabyte something, and he offered to change the plan so that way they can have a faster internet. And he said, "Oh my God, that was like so much conflict, and I was almost fired because of that." А в чем проблема была? Почему хотели уволить? Что вы типа ничего не понимаете или что? Или вы не могли объяснить ей?
Нет, была проблема в том, что они не понимали, зачем это нужно было делать, когда и так, в принципе, как-то что-то там работало, хотя периодически говорили люди о том, что выйдите, пожалуйста, некоторые, те, которые отправляли почту, выйдите, просили другие отделы выйти из интернета.
Okay. So I asked what was the point of the conflict, and he says that I couldn't explain to my boss that actually this was something that we needed to do, to switch to another level, and they were trying to stick to the opinion that we don't need to do that. Да, но мне кажется, это еще структурная проблема. I think that's a structural problem as well.
Она вроде так-то и структурная проблема, но когда произошла пандемия, оказалось что то, о чем я говорил, оказалось очень важным, о том, что скорость интернета была важным, но...
Yeah, and when the pandemic hit the world, it was like it turned out that he was right. Like it proved him right, because like the change, the switch to another, condition was like needed. Because...
Вот, и мое такое мнение о том, что как бы это чисто мое мнение о том, что женщина не должна разбираться в некоторых технических возможностях, в работе структуры учреждения технических.
So yeah,
Вот,
не должна. Но?
Вот, но она должна прислушиваться ко мнению специалистов, которые там работают.
Okay, he says that a woman is not required, like a woman director is not required to know all the technical details about different, parts of the project, but at the same time, it's important to listen to those people who know more about it. Да, Cornelius...
Who know more about the part? Okay, yeah.
Technical stuff, yeah.
Но, по моему мнению, в работе, я уже работаю больше 10 лет в муниципальной структуре. Такого как бы нету. Вот как кому-то что-то кажется, он так и сделал. Может, это очень сложно звучит. Давайте я чуть по-другому перефразирую.
Не то чтобы сложно, просто это такая локальная
ситуация.
Сейчас
все работает. Да, у нас здесь идет равенство.
Я с вами согласна, но там...
полов.
Сейчас мы обсудим, да. Сейчас я вас спрошу тоже у всех, что они думают. Yeah. So within 10 years, it was like the same recurring problem that like some things were just like difficult to understand. Я слышу, что тут уже тоже этот комментарий идут.
Еще раз, секундочку, как бы это чисто не от меня, а как бы от всего мужского коллектива и от технического.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's
насчет женщин-руководителей.
Yeah, that's a pain of all.
Насчет женщин-руководителей от технического коллектива.
I understand it so well. It's like
о том, что
the IT guys, they're just like they have a hard time because of
о том, что женщинам проще купить горшочки для цветов, чем подумать о будущем, о том, что в учреждении могут быть введены новые технологии.
Понимаю. Да, давайте послушаем, что еще другие скажут. Okay, thanks for sharing. Yeah, okay, let's discuss. I see some voices and interests. Yeah.
So, something I do want to say is I am actually someone who does work in robotics.
Она говорит, я как раз в технике работаю, так что
awesome.
Yeah, woohoo.
Yeah, and so, I am female and whatnot, and this really just depends on how much the person is open to the suggestion. This has nothing to do with her being a female. This is just more so in alignment with her stubbornness.
Да, 100%.
So whenever
Она говорит...
So whenever I think
Can I translate real quick? Yeah, тут вопрос, наверное, даже не столько в гендерном различии, сколько именно в открытости к мышлению и каким-то решениям. То есть какие-то люди вообще просто в принципе не очень открыты, а это у всех руководителей есть. Не открытые, они просто люди, которые не очень образованные в технологиях, да, они не любят и не считают нужным тратить на это деньги. Это даже не столько от пола зависит. Go ahead, happy.
And so, I think about, certain project managers or certain directors that I've worked with, and, it doesn't matter if something makes logical sense, or whether or not they're male or female. There's still a lot of biases that they may hold that may affect their decision-making overall. So, I do want to give, I would like to give examples, but if I give examples, I don't want to disclose too much of my identity, but that's something to consider. So that's it for me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I'm intrigued now.
Thank you.
Do you work for Umbrella?
Yeah, I wanted to say that too. That's how.
Corporation.
Yeah, she works for Umbrella Corporation.
А можно в двух словах, что она сказала?
Да, быстро переведу сейчас. Она говорит, я работаю в IT-сфере, говорит, очень с многими людьми, и это, говорит, больше зависит от того, какой у человека установка именно, вот у самого человека, и предрассудки, и по большому счету с полом это ничего не имеет общего. Это, говорит, именно зависит, и в зависимости от того, как приоритеты расставляются и финансы выделяются, это всегда вот влияет на это, какая установка у человека. Go ahead, I'm done being a translator for free. Hold on.
Right.
Cornelius. I'm working over hours. I'm working hours here. Extra hours. Okay, Cornelius, where are you? I'm trying to give you a megaphone because I can hear you. There you go. Thanks, Mendes.
Yeah, I just want to say that I work in a very technical field in doing visual effects, and it doesn't matter if it's female or male or whatever. There are always people in charge that doesn't know what are the technical things that we need to do. It doesn't matter. my boss is a female, and she's incredible. She knows what we need to do. She needs what we need. So it really, I think it's just one case, but I don't think it's the rule. And now in Canada, like the law are really incredible in the create safest workspaces, and it's really changing. I think in 10 or 20 years it's going to be totally different. I hope so, at least.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I feel the same way that we're in transition. Mendes?
What I've seen through my life is that places where you do allow women to be do end up overall becoming better places, and that's just because men for all of history have consistently proven to be fucking animals when it comes down to it, and I know that even for myself, I wouldn't be where I'm at without a lot of guiding me through my life. So that's all.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, to be honest, I think that gender is important. I think this is agenda number one of the first agendas today, and like LGBTQ question is also very acute in the world. But at the end of the day, to be honest, I think the most important thing is just like each personality. It depends on the personality type. And I think that personality always has like different variation of different qualities depending on the situation, like many different factors. So I think that certain people, they have like these pictures of what is acceptable and what is not. In every culture, it's different. Like, can a woman drive? Yeah, of course. In America, in France, the women can drive. But whether they can drive in Qatar, I'm not sure. Like in some Arabic countries, they are not allowed to drive still, even nowadays. So that window of what is a stereotype for a certain thing or a certain status, I think changes from country to country. But I think we should if we look into the future, I think it's just like a step to overcome and to really understand that there's a person on the other side of the fence. And when you talk to another person, first of all, it's a personality. Yeah, and of course we have mixture of different traits, and that doesn't make it any, much different. We just have to be aware. And I think that's where education again becomes a key point, where if you know about other people's lives and their, mindset, it helps you understand their, at least not, if you can't accept it, you at least start understanding things, and that actually helps a lot. And I think that leads to a better partnership, to a better, marriage, to a better everything. So I hope that in the future, the world is going to be more adequate, I think. Just accepting who you are and accepting other people, knowing about other people and letting them happen, letting them, be. That's really important. I think in some cultures, because they stick so much, I think that's not about culture, maybe, because there are tests, and in every country there are a lot of people who are on different sides, and I think that's more of a mindset, maybe. More of a conservative
choice
type of people, I think. There was an interesting research that some people, there are certain tests that actually can to put you to a different different half of the spectrum, whether you are more libertarian, not libertarian, liberal and conservative. I think it has to deal something with the tolerance towards violence or something like that. Some people who are not very tolerant to blood and violence, they tend to be a little bit more conservative or something like that. I don't remember. It was just an interesting point that it's
that.
Yeah, there are some tests basically science-based technologies to have some understanding on that spectrum. I think they even had the. Anyway, I don't have any clear information on that, so I'm not going to share it anyway. So I think depending on that, I think many things are also determined. If you're more liberal, you start from my perspective, because I think I have a more liberal mindset, and I have a good background with traditions and coming from a certain place. Hey, Omni, nice to see you. And and I think being liberal actually allows you to see other personality rather than the picture or label. I think for people who are conservative, for them it's really important to have boxes for each thing, so that way they have order in their life and they understand what things are. Mm-hmm. and that's not bad. It's just like the way people choose to be, like the way it's easier for them. So I think that depending on that, we can always find this new era where we can like find the best combination of being free and seeing another person and still keeping to your own right things, that you think that this pyramid is white and it's correct because I see it that way. And more people want to evaluate things in a good way. Sure, go ahead. I started talking
what do you guys think, or what is something that we could do as individual human situation better for gender equality?
That's a great
gender
question.
Equity.
Yeah, great question. Okay,
Any
I'm
ideas?
expecting some hand raises. Yes. Okay, Mylin and Renee. Let me use my power and give a megaphone to Renee. Why not? We have equality here, so I'm gonna. Oh, happy Cornelius! Everybody, let me just give megaphones to everybody. You just be aware of your power and mute yourself if you're not speaking.
Yeah, I think it was Renee, then Happy, then Myla.
Yeah. I'm just gonna give everybody megaphones.
Yeah. Go ahead, Renee.
Yeah.
The way I see it, that would make it is a lot more understanding. Mm-hmm. A lot of men that I've spoken to, I have a lot of these discussions with men because I like to hear their opinion.
True, very wise decision.
And a lot of, it's nice to see, it from another perspective.
Sure.
The answer that I usually get from a lot of men is they find women emotional. Mm-hmm. Right, but a lot of men don't have an understanding of why, as women, we're considered as emotional.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I think that's an asset. I mean, I don't know. I think that's the fault of men, is I have that emotional capacity. That's why you shouldn't put men in leadership.
It's just being educated in every aspect of it. Personally, myself, I think a lot of men are kind of blocked out to the realistic views of what us as women, and I don't mean to say that we're superior in any way, mm-hmm. but we're always labeled as over emotional. Look at what our bodies have to go through.
Mm-hmm. Hormones
on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, so when we're hit with that label of we're emotional, mm-hmm. well, just step down from your high horse just for a moment. Mm-hmm. And just have a bit more understanding. Again, everyone, I don't mean to offend or insult anybody, but a lot more understanding. Men that are willing to listen. Don't want to nag, we don't want to complain, we don't want to be seen as emotional.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We just want to be heard, just like you would want to be heard. So mm-hmm. my opinion is a lot more understanding.
Okay, yeah.
We wouldn't have so many issues.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I heard that what men do is we always expect something, but we're not just open to just hearing people out, because we're expecting something from it. Mm-hmm. It's very hard for us to listen.
Yeah, it is true.
It's more when a man is conversing with another man, this other man's experience, his opinion is more respected, and they soak that in more than if they were having, and again, not everyone, but they tend to soak that in more than if it was a woman having that same opinion.
Yeah, that's
to sort of
happens.
Oh, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I talk too
much. And to sort of mimic that, so this is something that a lot of women in tech have to deal with, and we've there's something where there needs to be a sort of deprogramming of unconscious biases. So let's say, for instance, one person sends you a resume and you read that it's a male. The other one, exact same resume, and then you see that it's a female. You may end up judging the female more harshly than if you were to judge the male. You would be a little bit more forgiving. You wouldn't challenge a lot of their experiences or their education as much if they were a male. But like the easiest way to kind of remove that kind of bias is just just take the information as is and sort of treat it equal across the board. And that's really hard to do when you're doing it in person. But
basically,
let's say
ignore the gender.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do you
ignore the gender?
Yeah, and it's like super hard. Like, even in women, like even women in meeting will sometimes talk over other women, like unintentionally, and like oh my god, this has happened to me so many times. And like whenever we're talking about something, sometimes there will be like a challenge, but it's so unintentional. But it's just because we're trying to sort of like say like, hey, my voice is valid, and then it's kind of like a weird competition. And like, and what am I trying to say? And then when there's, oh my goodness, there have been times in meetings where I have said something, no one listens to the meeting. I mean, listens to what I say, and then this guy who will just yes, he says the exact same thing. I'm like, what are you? Everyone's like,
good
yes, exactly. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scream that into
Go
your
ahead,
guys'
it's a free
ears.
floor.
But
You
yes,
can
it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm like, how did you understand it from the guy? I literally just said the exact same thing first. I don't know, but there are messages that get misconstrued just because of the person who says it. And so that's something, that's one thing, is just to listen first and then think about it and then have your response, and don't see it as a competition. So that's what I was trying to say. Okay, that's it for
thanks
me.
for sharing. Thanks for sharing. Okay, Mylan, Kate, I think that you're speaking, but I think nobody hears you. Let me give you a megaphone.
Sorry, I was just saying, that's why I think that when we see that happening, whether it's in a business setting or a social setting or whatever, privately, it's incumbent on all of us really to call out that behaviour. If we notice it, say something, because the only way it's going to change and improve is if actually we have the courage to say, look, hang on, didn't so-and-so just mention that in that meeting? And, because who knows how the sort of tide will turn against us ourselves if we don't stand up for those people that are being oppressed and not being treated fairly.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Okay, Cornelius, you Mylan, you were on the top of the list, and Cornelius, you too.
Mylan,
please,
sorry.
Go ahead. That's fine. Okay. Tin Man.
Yeah, you just
Omni,
wanted to say that
what
we can do is what I was saying is that I was raised by a feminist mother, which was incredible, but at the same time, I was raised in a culture that it was totally sexist. So acknowledging that I have to deal with some of that stuff, acknowledging and learning how to change some behaviors, that's what we can do, right?
Yes, it's hard.
Exactly.
When you come from a system where everything is just like one way, and you move to another system, you're like, wait a second, the size system is different. How do I choose mine? Okay, good. Yeah, thanks. Okay, Mylan, are you going to add something to that?
Yeah. About this the concept that's not equal in everywhere. Like when regarding the when the condition where women are a lot more rather than men, like in school, in my city, when I was just studying, there were only women teacher and only couple of men. But here the concept is completely different. Women a lot more angry, and they don't like kids inside the school sometimes.
And low salaries.
Not the salary, about the I believe that because there's a few men and just communication without mixing gender.
Maybe.
I would say this condition just made them a little bit angry. On the other hand, there are also different conditions, like as I just say, in a perspective of years of view, in my view, just when we see just some not only gender abusement or kind of say young or adulthood and childhood conditions, I think we should say we should come up here and then solve this condition locally rather than just create a rule after years later. We could just tell, oh man, you should just be kindful for girls in our class. Hey, listen, be respectful as an all sisters we have or mothers. We could just know the condition, what they could feel about us, like as a man. We could solve these conditions as a local. That's what I would like to say.
Yeah, big changes happen in little steps.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Coming back to your question, Mendes. Yeah. About what we can do about the future.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was gonna say that as a man myself, whenever I see yes like that, like I'm not letting my homies demean it. They're not gonna do it in front of me at all. I try to call it out in the workplace. I'm conscious of it, and at least I try to be conscious of what I contribute to that that part of our society. I try to make sure I'm doing my best.
Good job. Yay.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, great. Okay, a couple. Whoa, yes. Oh, wow. I think everybody have hand raises, so I want to give megaphones to everybody. Okay, Tin Men was the next on the list, and also Omni. So Omni has the megaphone, but Tin Men, let me give you one. Would you like to say something?
Yes, I should be taking notes. I've had so many thoughts in the last hour.
Welcome to Theory of Everything. Happens all the time.
I start with language and make an analogy.
Ooh, yeah.
I hate that language puts me in a minority when people say, oh, you're non-religious. And I try to change the language, although I just do it for myself. Say, oh, you're Godded.
Good.
Language is a big part of what helps to keep gender roles preserved. And if it wasn't so, then we wouldn't even have to come to this meeting and say, well, I have a female boss and she's just as feisty, or she's just as competent, or she's just as this or that as my male boss. That'd be a given. But language drives us to these concepts, and then we have to make these expressions. And I'd like to eliminate those expressions and just start as equal right there.
Okay, good.
I'll show you an example of my bias that's pervasive in how I think about it every day. I watch the news, and this lady comes on, and she always dresses really nice. And sometimes I think, the leopard prints don't really become her. Or I look at the microphone she's wearing. I'm saying, boy, she ought to have one that's skin tone, or she ought to have one that's white, because that black one is showing a line under her blouse. And yet the males that sit at the desk are as old as fossils, and the females get retired to a desk job when they don't look good enough. And so I think about that every day, and I think, why do I worry about how she looks on camera? I don't worry about how any of those guys look, and I want to change that concept in my mind. I'm constantly trying to rewire my mind to get rid of those things. 3 weeks ago, I went to a conference right here on AltSpace VR on artificial intelligence, and they paired a male AI with a female AI. First, they had the female AI talking on her own. And while she was being presented to people, See, I should keep my hands here. I just did an expression and I wasn't wearing my hand. While she was talking, the presenter said that she represented herself as having an IQ of 160. And then he really got into that. Why should she say 160 when it's hard to really test IQ in that range? We have people alive walking around us today that are listed in the 230s. Mm-hmm. So 160, 160. A lot of people have 160 IQs. Why did he go on about it? Mm-hmm. Then he paired the female AI with a male AI, and they had a conversation. They tried to have a deep conversation about whether there was an emotional content or whether something could be achieved beyond just the numbers and being an AI and expressing oneself. The female AI would get off track easily. Female AI would bring the conversation around to her appearance. The female AI, to her credit, would introduce new ideas and subjects to try and keep the conversation lively, but the male AI tracked and focused on the original conversation. Male AI was more pessimistic, but he was constantly staying with the subject and everything. And you get the idea that the female idea, she's kind of glib, she's kind of easy about life, and everything's rosy. You get the idea the male, he thinks deeper, he knows the problems, he's thinking of it, and he's staying on track. And then halfway through the presentation, they said, and I was thinking, these are two different engines. These are two different labs making two different people. Halfway through the presentation, they said, this is the same engine from the same lab, just two different genders.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
Well, at the end of the show, when the guy brought up the Q&A, I went into how he was so stuck on females' IQ and what did it matter, and how he never mentioned. And I understand, like I look at my hands now and I say, okay, these are artificial. They had to be simplified to make them commercially viable. This room is amazing, but most of it had to be simplified or would never load. You understand, commercially viable, one of the objectives for an AI program is for it to approximate the characteristics of the real, to make you get lulled into feeling like you're talking like a real person. And all the time that I was watching these two, I understood that the qualities they gave to the female helped make her seem more associated with gender. Some of the qualities they gave to the male helped make him seem more associated with his gender. But when you strip away the cover and you look at it, the premises were terrible. And the premises perpetuate gender alienation. And I'm thinking, they should just make the female look like a female. They should make the male look like a female. If we say, well, the male has more of the quality of being gruff and physical. Well, some females are gruff and physical too. If we say a female is more emotional or more attached to her children, well, some males are too. And so, until they can really master that, until they can really define every iota of what's inside us, they should stay away from these things. And they did a terrible job of it. And I told the guy they did a terrible job. And why wasn't he concerned about that? And he asked me, do you think I should quit this as my profession again? And I said, I wouldn't do it as your day job. And it is his day job. So these are the people that are in charge of AI. They're putting gender stereotypes into the future of artificial intelligence. And they're doing it by the shovelful.
Oh, my battery is dying.
One of my father's big regrets that he only said to my mom was that he never got involved in our rearing the way that I got involved in the rearing of my children. He could see that. We talked about how we expect women to be in the workforce as much as men. We come home and it's women's work. We lay in bed and the child cries and the male sits and pretends that he's deaf or sleeping until the woman gets up and goes take care of it.
Yeah.
That was not so in my house. In my house, I cooked, my wife cooked, I cleaned, my wife cleaned, I took care of the children, she took care of the children. We had 2 different shifts. But when she was home and I wanted to go do things, except for the time that was community time, I knew there was time when she had to be sleeping and resting too if she was going to work. And so the children went with me. We got this dog, and the dog was a terror in the house. And so I stretched out my arms to measure this area that I was going to put a fence in to keep him in the kitchen. And I thought, boy, I thought this area was longer than that. Well, if you've seen Da Vinci's, what is it, Vitruvian Man or something? Where there's a man inside a square, inside a circle.
Yeah, so Vitruvian Man.
Our height and our wingspan are supposed to be equal. And mine, up until I had kids, were. Some swimmers have a good long wingspan. So I took out a tape measure. I'm 6'3", and I measured my span, and I was 6'7", tip to tip. I thought, how did I get to be 6'7"? Well, everything I did, the kids had to come with me. I carried those kids everywhere, and I think I stretched out my arms. You can't expect in the home and in the workplace for the woman to carry all the work if you're not. And I was not even that good at it. I'm not that great a cook. My daughter. I have a simple philosophy in life. Make everything better than it was when you got to it. Make everything a little bit better.
Good principle.
I like that.
When the kids were small in the home, I'd read about how the guy decides he's going to buy the car. The guy decides what computer they're going to get. The guy orders the cable package. The guy does all these things, and the woman goes along with it. Even in politics. My wife would ask me, who are you going to vote for?